From The Great Migration by Jacob Lawrence. In 1940 to 1941, Jacob Lawrence painted many panels, including above picture. And the migrants kept coming. And bottom right, the railroad stations in the south were crowded with people leaving for the north. Between 1916 and 1970, 6 million African Americans migrated from the rural South to the urban North. They moved in search of better jobs, schools, and housing. But one main reason they moved was to escape racial discrimination and violence against them. Here, artist Jacob Lawrence tells his family's migration story. This is the story of his exodus of African Americans who left their homes and farms in the South around the time of World War I and traveled to northern industrial cities in search of better lives. Exodus is the exiting of a large number of people from a place at the same time. It was a monumentous journey. Their movement resulted in one of the biggest population shifts in the history of the United States. The Great Migration is part of my life. There was always talk in my house of other families arriving from the South. My family was part of the first big wave of the migration, which occurred between the years 1916 and 1919. My mother was born in Virginia, and my father was born in South Carolina. Somehow, they met on their way north, and I was born in Atlantic City, New Jersey, in 1917. We settled for a while in Philadelphia. Many other families settled there too, but many traveled even further to Pittsburgh, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and St. Louis. I arrived in New York City's Harlem community in 1930 when I was 13 years of age. Harlem was crowded with newcomers, but we all settled in somehow. I went to school, and after school, I went to an arts and crafts program. I decided that I wanted to be an artist. Eventually, teachers, friends, and even actors on the street corners helped me to understand how my own experiences fit into a much larger story, the history of African Americans in this country. It seemed almost inevitable that I would tell this story in my art. To me, migration means movement. While I was painting, I thought about trains and people walking to the stations. I thought about field hands leaving their farms to become factory workers, and about the families that sometimes got left behind. The choices made were hard ones. Uprooting yourself from one way of life to make your way in another involves conflict and struggle. But out of the struggle comes a kind of power and even beauty. I try to convey this in the rhythm of the pictures and in the repetition of certain images. And the migrants kept coming is a refrain of triumph over adversity. Refrain is a repeated part of a song. My family and others left the South on a quest for freedom, justice, and dignity. Dignity is also the belief that you have value as a person.